All right, good morning, everybody. How's everyone doing this morning? Good. I like a wave. I actually feel like I'm a person when Good to see you guys. Would you stand up and let's just enter into God's presence this morning? Can I open us in a word of prayer? Father God, thank you so much for just the chance to gather together with these awesome people, brothers and sisters, united in Jesus Christ. We thank you that we can come here today and just boldly declare how great your name is. We can sing your praises and make you famous in this world. God, I pray that what we do here today would prepare our hearts just to soak in the reality of what's going on in this world and how we can be a part of it. God, would you challenge us and shape us and mold us this morning as we hear stories, that we hear what you're doing in the world, but God, as we also we just think about the call and the command that you've given all of your believers, all your followers, that we would go into the whole world, proclaiming the good news of Jesus Christ, making disciples, baptizing. And God, you promise that you would be with us the entire way. So we sing these songs as just songs of love and adoration to a God who's always there, who always is by our side, who fights our battles for us. God, we praise you in the name of Jesus. Amen. We gather together in the name of Jesus. He's right here with us. There's joy in the house of the Lord today. Let's sing it out. We worship the God who was. We worship the God who is. We worship the God who evermore will be. He opened the prison doors. He parted the raging sea. Our God, He holds the victory. Yeah, there's joy in the house of the Lord. There's joy in the house of the Lord today. And we won't be quiet. Shout out your praise. There's joy in the house of the Lord. Our God is surely in this place. We won't be quiet. Shout out your praise. Shout out your praise. The God who heals, we sing to the God who saves, we sing to the God who always makes a way. 'Cause He hung up on that cross, then He rose up from that grave. My God, still rolling stones away. There's joy in the house of the Lord. There's joy in the house of the Lord today. We won't be quiet. Shout out your praise. There's joy in the house of the Lord. Our God is surely in this place. We won't be quiet. Shout out your praise. We were the beggars, now we're royalty. We were the prisoners, now we're running free. We are forgiven, accepted, redeemed by His grace. Let the house of the Lord sing praise. We were the beggars, now we're royalty. We were the prisoners, now we're running free. We are forgiven, accepted, redeemed by His grace. Let the house of the Lord sing praise. Lord today.
Father in heaven, it is your name that we lift on high. There is none like you. There is no God like you. And we thank you for the opportunity to be able to sing praises in this place. We are your people, the sheep of your pastures. We belong to you. We don't belong to the world. We don't belong to the enemy. We don't belong even to our family members. We belong to you. And so this morning, let this song that we sing be not just words that come out of our mouth, not just a melody, not just a tune that we sing. Let it be an expression of our heart of how desperately we desire you, we depend on you, and we love you. And so receive all praise and glory and honor in the name of Jesus. All God's people said, amen. You may be seated. Good morning and welcome. We're a little bit excited that you're here. And it's good to see you and to, like the song said, just be here. Literally, I like be the house of the Lord. Like that's who we are. We are God's building. Like we're the church. You and me. It's not a building. It's not rows. It's not a performance. It's none of those things. It's you and I. And so we're excited to be here. This morning's going to look a little bit different from what it normally does. And we always kick this time off usually with announcements and a hello and a welcome. So hello and let's announce something so that we kind of knock that out. Students, we meet again tonight, 6:30 here to 8 o'clock in the hall next door, right? And we're going to have a great time. So parents, bring your teens, bring your middle school student, bring your high school student, and we're going to have a good time. It's been a couple weeks since we've been able to meet, and so we're excited to get together to be a part of that. Now, this morning, as a part of the series called Core, where we've been looking at the core values that will be that will be the driving force of who we are as a church moving forward, right? Like Gateway Bible Church, Hope Christian Fellowship become one church. Like what will this church look like? What will this church feel like? What kind of things will we be passionate about? Because we won't do everything. That's not our goal. Our goal is to be the congregation that God has called us to be, right? And so a part of that it was really interesting as a staff member, Steve, and you got to kind of observe this. When Gateway and Hope first started to worship, one of the things we noticed is that there were a lot of things that Hope was passionate about, that they did really well, like different local mission initiatives that you guys have been a part of that we've been like, well, that's kind of cool. And we've been blessed to join in and be a part of those. And then we have some missionaries as well, then some endeavors that we support at Gateway. Maybe you don't know about those, but we're very passionate about the people that we love and support as they're trying to bring the gospel to the world nationally and internationally. And so we thought it'd be cool to take a Sunday and just highlight those, right? So there won't be a normal sermon kind of like you would anticipate. We're going to be interviewing some people. You're going to see all kinds of videos. But I want to read a Bible verse, right, from Acts chapter 8. Because when the church was launched and the Holy Spirit just kind of took over the world at the time, the formula was pretty basic for the spread of the gospel. It was to start in Jerusalem, and then it was to move nationally, and then it was to move internationally and take over the world, which is exactly what's happened. Christ is known all across the globe, right? But it started when the Holy Spirit fell in Jerusalem. And there's this interesting verse in Acts chapter 1, verse 8 that says this: you will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes on you. Remember we had a message earlier on that talked about the Holy Spirit. We are not man-powered. We are God-powered. We don't get credit for anything. It's all Him. We are Spirit-powered. So it says, you will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes on you, and you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem, right? That's local as it gets. You will be, for them, in Jerusalem, and then Judea and Samaria, nationally, and then the remotest parts to the ends, literally, of the earth, right? So it's going to start here, and then it's just going to take off. And as a congregation, we have a number of mission initiatives that we support, and some of them are very local, right? They're right here in Warrenton, in Gainesville, in Bristow, in Haymarket. They're right here in Vendale. And some of them then are national. They're across this country, and then some of them are international. And so this morning, we're going to kind of follow that formula. And we're going to talk about those. And some of them are via video. For example, when we talk about Jerusalem, right? We talk about those local missions. We just finished a week of very local, incredibly passionate, Spirit-filled ministry, the clothing giveaway, right? And we watched hundreds of people come in to receive tons and tons of clothes. And we do that not so that people can walk away and go, hey, look what I'm wearing. It's not that at all. It's so that we can be Christ to people and present Christ to people, because they may come in needing this outfit, but they have no idea what they need is the spiritual outfit that God has designed for them, right? Like the embodiment of His Son. And so we do that to share Christ. But we showed, in case you weren't here last week, a video of the clothing giveaway. And so we want to just share that with you again, just to, first of all, inspire you if you've not taken part in it, that maybe next year you're going to be a big part of what we did, because we got to increase our volunteers and increase our reach. So, and the second reason is just to revisit what a special week that was and the difference that it made. Hey, but let's put our hands together for the Lord, for what He's done, and for all of the volunteers that, gave like so much of their time to make that happen, right? And so, but that's like a local mission that you can get involved with right here that we do. And so we need to be thinking about that now. Like, how can I, looking at next year, open up my calendar so that I can be a part of that and volunteer and give for that awesome local mission. One of the things that you've noticed, and this is a local mission that we do, is there's a lot of events that we put on, whether it's drama camp or some of the performances that take place. And sometimes you'll walk into this area and there'll be baby bottles and we'll start collecting money. It's for an organization called Life First, right? That exists to resource ladies who have found themselves in a situation where they're trying to figure out what the answer is for this pregnancy that in their minds came out of nowhere. But we love and we're so passionate about resourcing this ministry, and we have a video that we want to show you because this is a very important local ministry that we do.
Hi, I'm Kirk. I'm the Church Relations Coordinator here at Life First.
And I'm Becky. I'm the CEO, and I've lost my voice.
So, on behalf of Becky and the rest of us at Life First, we're excited to tell you about what God is doing here in our ministry. Our vision is this, that every woman and man struggling with an unplanned pregnancy would come through our doors and be transformed in Christ. Yes, we are gospel-centered, and I am thrilled to tell you that this year alone, we know of at least 148 babies that have been born, yay, and we've also had 86 folks come in and accept Jesus Christ as their Savior right here in our centers. We offer free pregnancy tests, free ultrasounds, parenting classes, and even abortion recovery Bible studies. We have medical centers in Woodbridge and Manassas.
And what are the names of those medical centers?
First Care Women's Health. So remember that, and we'd love to have you come and tour. This is a mighty ministry. We are a local mission, and we thank you so much for your support. You're making a difference for life.
So we can look at this world and we go, man, like, I want to make a difference, but the problems of the world, they're so big, and I feel like, what can little me do? Well, there's organizations right here like First, and you can plug in and get involved, you can donate, you can give, and you can make a real difference now. I mean, they're literally saving and changing lives. And that's one of the things that we were excited about when Gateway got to know Hope. We're like, man, they're very passionate about this. And so we wanted to make you aware. This is a Christ-centered mission that we support. It's local, and it's awesome that we get the opportunity to do that. And we're going to feature another ministry that we do, and it's kind of local, kind of national. It's local in that there's this organization called Cru. They're formerly known as Campus Crusade, and they have a presence on our universities and colleges, and the purpose is to introduce students to Jesus Christ, right? And so we support a missionary in Kentucky who's on campus doing some work down there, and he's been one of the missionaries that we've supported for a while through Cru. And so we want to introduce you to Joel and the work that he's doing.
Good morning, Gateway and Hope. For those of you who have yet to meet me, my name is Joel Bourne, and I work full-time with a global mission organization known as Cru. I've been called to be a missionary with my family to the young men and women studying at the University of Tennessee. UT has over 31,000 students. Some of them know Christ, many unfortunately do not. All of them are seeking truth. All of them are seeking hope and joy and community and ultimately life. My work here is to connect those deep spiritual needs that we all have to the only one that can provide them eternally, and that's Jesus Christ. We do that in multiple ways, one of which is discipling the students who know Christ to reach out to the ones who don't through conversational evangelism. It's a wonderful process that allows unbelievers to hear the gospel in an honest and compassionate way, and the believer to lean in on who Christ is by walking in faith with him as a shepherd. I think of Jacob. He's known Christ for years, yet he wasn't super excited to go sharing. He was even hesitant to go sharing. Yet he took a step of faith and came along with me. We were able to share the gospel with a whole group of guys, and Jacob's heart was really set on fire with how powerful that conversation was. Now Jacob senses that God's calling him to be a full-time missionary. I love this because he went out hesitant to share a message of life change for others, and ended up with his life changing. I think of Chase, who grew up an atheist in an atheist family. He's never been to church, or he had never been to church, and he came to know Christ. We ended up meeting and talking and really discussing what it meant to share the gospel, and now he wants to go out sharing with me. I think of JP, Matt, Avery Evans, Zach, on and on, all of these students who have been shown how to share the gospel and are excited to do so through this ministry. Many of the students we disciple learn that God has called them into full-time ministry. However, most of them just go on to have traditional vocations through which they are equipped to share the gospel with coworkers, employees, any customers that come in if they own a business, or patients if they're in the medical field. But really, anyone that comes their way, they're able to share what God has done in their life. Each of you, by meeting together as a body of believers, being faithful and praying for us, and in giving for our financial needs, allows for this amazing, wonderful, and life-giving work to be done here in Knoxville, Tennessee. So I just want to say thank you to the amazing leadership team, and thank you to everyone at Gateway and Hope. God bless. Bye.
So Joel, as a part of Cru, they equip and mobilize other students who know Jesus. This is how you share the gospel. And then they challenge them to share it on their campus. And a lot of you have students that are in college now, and some of you, you're going to be there real soon. You're on the brink of that phase of your life. And how awesome is it to know that there are organizations out there that want to help your student continue to grow in their faith? And so we resource him. And by the way, if you would love, you can individually jump on board. If that's something you want to do and support Joel and his family and what they're doing, you can contact Stephen and say, hey, I'd like to be like a monthly supporter for Cru and what they're doing, and that would be awesome. But that's just a flavor of some of the local mission work that you're doing. You will be my witnesses, Acts says, in Jerusalem, right? Locally, we need to be making a difference. And so I want to ask you to stand where you are. I'm going to pray for those three local missions, and then we're going to continue in worship. And then when I come back up here, we're going to talk about some of the national mission work we do. So if you will stand, Father in heaven, You are awesome in all that you do, and I thank you for the display of your love that took place through the clothing giveaway. And I pray that you will grow that so that it's even bigger and better next year, so that the lives will be touched and people come to Christ because they came here just looking to be clothed physically. And so I thank you for that, Father, and for Life First and the difference that they're making for these unplanned pregnancies and the confusion, a lot of these young ladies and families. Father, I pray that you will expand their reach, that more people will come to know you through that organization, that lives will continue to be saved, that we can be a part of resourcing that organization in a mighty way. Father, and for Joel and what he's doing for his family and crew, the gospel on the campus, Father, it's so desperately needed. It's one of the biggest places of spiritual warfare is right there on our campuses. So I thank you that your presence is there. Increase it, grow it, help us to resource it. And we thank you for resourcing us through your Son, Jesus Christ, and what you did on the cross. We love you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Rebecca's going to lead us in a song this morning. And the bridge of this song says, all my life, in every season, you are still God. And I have a reason to sing. I have a reason to worship. And that's something I just want to kind of draw our attention to this morning. As we think about the work that God is doing in this world, when we go to bed at night, God doesn't stop working. We're stressed out when the pains and the trials of life seem to consume everything, every part of our mind. God is still at work. He's not taking a break. He's still God. We still have a reason to worship. So no matter what season we're in, we can join in. We can be a part of what He is doing in this world.
This is my prayer in the desert, when all that's within me feels dry. This is my prayer in my hunger and need. My God is the God who provides. This is my prayer in the fire, in weakness or trial or pain. There is a faith proved of more worth than weapon formed against me shall remain. I will rejoice and I will declare, God is my victory and He is here. I will bring praise, I will bring praise. No weapon formed against me shall remain. I will rejoice, I will declare, God is my victory and He is here. This is my prayer in the harvest, when favor and providence flow. I know I'm filled to be emptied again. The seed I've received I will sow.
Weapon may be formed, but it won't prosper. When the darkness falls, it won't prevail. 'Cause the God I serve knows only how to triumph. My God will never fail. My God will never fail. And I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. There's power in the mighty name of Jesus. Every war He wages, He will win. I'm not backing down from any giants, 'cause I know how this story ends. Yes, I know how this story ends. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. You take what the enemy meant for evil and you turn it for good. Turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil and you turn it for good. turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. Turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. Turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. And I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good.
Father, when we signed up to follow you, we signed up to be a part of your kingdom expansion project. And so it is an honor to be your soldiers, to be your messengers, to be your witnesses. Mobilize us to do just that. We know that the battle is yours, that you're going to go ahead and fight those battles. You will speak on our behalf, that you will go, Father, and if we just are willing to step out and say, okay, I will, do a work that the world has never seen, that this country has never seen, that this city has never seen, because we serve an awesome God, and we love you, and we worship you. In the name of your Son, we pray. Amen. Amen. You may be seated. By the way, this is the time we're going to have our kids get up out of their seats, and you're going to go next door. And you talk about mission, right? What our leaders do with your children when they run through those doors, that's a mission that is very important to us. And they're going to go back there and they're going to study the Word of God, and they're going to come back afterwards, hopefully fired up to share what they learned about who God is and the mission that God has for them. So make sure, parents, that when you're driving home and you leave this place, you stop and have that conversation with them. Hey, tell me about what you... And then go home and maybe read it together and become primary influencers spiritually in their lives. That's kind of our goal, right, as parents. But we want to talk now. It says, you will be, Acts 1:8, you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem, right? And then Judea and Samaria. So like nationally, we have an impact, right? And we are excited to share with you a little bit about what some of the people in this congregation are doing and have done and will be doing to make sure that God's hands are making a difference in this nation and that we are sharing Christ. And I want to start, some of you may not know who Bill and Lynn Lewis are, but they attended Gateway for a while. And they are missionaries at heart, and they've done all kinds of mission work. But I pulled some stuff from their website. I'm just going to read that for you a little bit so that you can kind of get a flavor of who they are. But they live in Florida, and they have a very special mission project that they are a part of that that it ministers to broken people in ministry, people that just need to be resourced because maybe life has beat them up or the challenges of ministry have beat them up. And so, but Bill and Lynn Lewis were, they were attending Gateway for a while, and then this is when they headed down to do this. They left us to go do this, and we kind of sent them off to do it. But for a number of years, we've supported and resourced Bill and Lynn. They are passionate Christ followers, and they are a part of a mission organization now called Bethesda by the Sea, and it's a counseling mission project that they're both very passionate about. But Bill and Lynn Lewis, they met at Grace Theological Seminary. They were both pursuing their MA in biblical counseling under Dr. Larry Crabb and Dr. Dan Allender. And it then became their pursuit of Jesus together that led them into doing counseling ministry initially. But as God sometimes has a sense of humor, we think our life is going to be about one thing. I mean, how many times have you said, this is what I'm going to do, and this is what God has called me to do, and then 5 years later, you look back 10 years later, you're like, I don't know how I got here, but this is pretty awesome, God. That's kind of the story of their mission life. Because where they started in counseling ministry, what happened was this, is God took them overseas to Russia, where they ministered there for like 7 years in Russia as missionaries. Then God called them from there to Israel. And they ministered in Israel for a number of years. And then God called the Lewis family back to the United States. And Bill Lewis was actually a missionary at Capitol Hill, working with congressmen to try to, bring the message of Christ to this area that is so politically charged. And so when they come in and visit from time to time, if you have the chance to get together with them and pick their brains about some of the adventures that they've had and some of the paths that God has taken them down, it's pretty phenomenal what they've done. But it was after that the Lord opened their eyes to a brand new ministry. Bill and Lynn grew increasingly distressed by the toll that they saw that missionaries and pastors and ministry workers and colleagues would go through. And by the way, as a pastor, I cannot tell you, a ministry like this means so much to me. Like, I went to Kentucky Christian University, right? And there was a number of people that I became very close to that were like so fired up when they graduated. I'm going to work with a church, so I'm going to be a pastor, I'm going to be a missionary. And then they go into the mission field, or they start working with churches. And man, like, churches, you guys are awesome people. I'm so thankful that you are our congregation, because not all churches are that grace-filled and loving. And I've got so many friends that the story of their life is, I went into missionary work, or I went into, and then the church just beat me up, and I want nothing to do with that for the rest of my life, and they leave ministry for good, right? Like, that's been the story of a lot of people, and it's sad, and it breaks my heart. But I'm really excited when somebody can be a part of a missionary organization that ministers to those kind of families. And it was after that they decided to combine their passion and their skill and their education in counseling, and they joined Bethesda by the Sea. And this is literally operates as a safe harbor where struggling pastors and missionaries and Christian leaders can come and they can find rest and refreshment and become rejuvenated for the ministry that God has called them to be. And so Bill and Lynn Lewis do that, and if that's a mission, and we have a Gateway support them, that you'd like to support individually as well, that's something you can do, all right? That's like a national mission group that we support. A few weeks ago, it was over a month ago now, we sent a group of missionaries from here to Kentucky to do mission work, to do relief disaster work. So I'm going to ask that group to come on up. If you were a part of that team, a lot of you are wearing orange, so you're highly recognizable. And so, I want you guys to put your hands together for them as they come up. And disaster relief, come on down, is like a very big deal in this country, and there are no shortage of opportunities for us to be able to be the hands and feet of Jesus in the face of disaster. So I want you guys to come up, and Justin, I'm going to give you the mic here, my friend, and you can tell them just a little bit about the trip, and then if you guys would share maybe what your, one of the most impactful moments that you have had as a part of that trip, it would be awesome. So,
sure. Good morning, saints. I'm Justin, for you guys that don't know, and I'm just going to throw this out there in case we don't later. So this morning, our mission team met. We usually do once a month, usually first Sunday of the month, for an hour just to kind of go over this kind of stuff. So if God stirs you in any way, you want to get more plugged in, more involved, stay up to date, just let me know. All of our stuff is regularly communicated through the weekly newsletter, but we'd love to have a greater passion as well as things continue. So anyway, we got our fifth member coming here. I'll give you the quick synopsis. So in December of last year, 2021, tornadoes came through western Kentucky and totally decimated a small town, or parts of a small town, I should say. If you could kind of visualize walking through downtown Warrenton, it would kind of like be walking down Main Street and there's just nothing there but concrete floor. You know, like entire strips just disappeared. So when I heard about it, but when you see pictures, it's different. I didn't realize that was there. So anyway, so when I saw it, God just broke something in me, and if my house was decimated, I would want people to show up and help. So I just said, I got to go. Who wants to come? And here we are. So I'm going to we'll kind of go down, and then I'll go last. But just kind of a quick synopsis as far as what the trip, you know, how the Lord worked in you, or maybe something that you were able to be used by God to strengthen others. So I'll let Betty go first.
Okay. I'm going to tell you about something that happened off the work site. It was one afternoon after work, and Christina and I had walked over to a nearby Dollar General. I'm waiting in line. A lady with these two beautiful little girls gets in line behind me, and she sees the shirt that I have on, and she says, "Oh, Samaritan's Purse. I just love Samaritan's Purse." And she says, "Can I give you a hug?" And I says, "Well, sure." I says, if you know me, I never turn down a hug. So we hugged there in the Dollar General, and she says, "I just have to tell you, as a little girl, I received the Christmas boxes from Samaritan's Purse." She says, "You have no idea what an impact it made on myself and the children in our village." She says, "For most of us, this was the only Christmas present or present we might get all year." And she says, "We sat anxiously, excitedly, waiting for those boxes every single year." I mean, when she's telling me this story, it just like, I thought, and just the week before we had gone down, I had picked up my boxes from the back. And it just made me want to come home and pick up even more. Because there are children that are waiting. And they're looking for some joy that can come in a box. We are all blessed, friends. You know, God has been good to us. Here's our chance, an easy opportunity to make somebody's Christmas special. So I'm going to encourage you all to pick up your boxes today, because this lady, all these years later, was so enthusiastic and still touched by what people did for her.
Okay. For me, it would happen when we were on the plane going to Nashville. It wasn't very full, and I was sitting by the window, and then there was this young man who was sitting in the aisle seat. After I woke up, because that's what I do on a plane, he and I started to talk, and his name is Andrew, and he was from Newfoundland, Canada. He was on his way to Nashville to Temple, and I thought Temple was another town, but no, Temple happened to be the yoga place where people go to do whatever they do there. And, well, I don't know. And so anyway, he and I talked, and I told him about Samaritan's Purse, and he didn't know that, and he didn't know that Christians went out and actually helped other people. And through there, he and I started talking about Jesus and what Jesus represented, and I led him into, knowing more about Jesus. We get off the plane, and he and I are still walking, and Justin and the group stood there, and I introduced Andrew to him, and Justin started leading him more so into Jesus and sharing about his cousin, and we shared. Anyway, Andrew he said that he'd been condemned by his other Christian friends for being involved in yoga. And we told him, well, yoga was just an exercise. You can do that. But when they get around to chanting that stuff, just chant for Jesus. Say, hey, Jesus, help me. Let me know who you are. And he seemed to be receptive and stuff. And he and I, we've kept in touch for a while, but after about September the 11th, we haven't kept, we lost touch. And I reached out to him not too long ago and still haven't heard. So if you all will, please keep this young man in prayer. I'm hoping that the Holy Spirit planted the seeds and somebody else will come along and do the harvest. And if I may just digress one moment, I just got back from Florida. Please pray for those people. I was down there with Samaritan's Purse. Please pray, because the people who are from 70 up, they have lost everything. They have no insurance on their homes. And so, they're on really small income, so I don't know what's going to happen to them, but please keep them in prayer.
That's actually next on the list.
Oh.
Yeah, but that's okay.
Oh.
Thank you for digressing, and thank you for your passion.
All right, sorry.
That's okay. It's that important.
Okay, so for me, I wanted to go. I wanted to make a difference and help people. And kind of selfishly, I wanted also to God to show up in a big way, like have this big, huge God moment. And the destruction was crazy, even after like over 6 months. But so we learned things and we helped and we did things most of the week. And I was like, well, the big God moment really didn't happen, but, I got to make a difference in people's lives. We didn't really see any people until Thursday when we dedicated a house, but it was Friday that God showed up in a big way. And the foreman in charge of our group, he was good with surprise, well, not so good with surprises, because Thursday he's like, I've got a surprise for you since we're done with this house. And we went to go mix cement. So that wasn't a good surprise. But on Friday, yeah, it wasn't bad. But on Friday, he was like, I have a really good surprise for you. And I'm like, okay. He goes, we're going to go meet George. So I was like, all right, we're going to go meet George. So we get to George's house. And, on the way, we just see destruction all around his house. And his house was kind of untouched. We were going to go hang some, numbers, his house numbers on his house, and fix some mini blinds in the house. But before we did that, the guy in charge of our group, Ron, he was like, you need to hear George's testimony. So George was standing there, and he was missing pretty much most of his right hand. And I guess it was the mid to late 90s, he was in he worked in a factory, and he was in an accident where his hand got caught in a machine, and basically his hand was stuck, and it was torn to shreds. And there was a paramedic that came, and I guess I'm probably leaving out stuff, but the paramedic prayed with him. I can't remember if he asked her to pray or if she prayed with him, but they got him out of there, and they gave him so much pain medicine and stuff and put him in a helicopter, and basically he was dying right in front of them. They check his vitals, and everything is stable, even though he had lost so much blood. And he gave the credit to God because of that. And then multiple surgeries later, his hand was starting, the flesh was starting to die. So they were going to have to amputate. So they wrapped him up, and surgery was scheduled for the next day, and they unwrapped it. And the surgeon was like, I don't believe this. And he's like, what do you mean? What do you not believe? And he said, your hand, the flesh isn't dying anymore. We can save it. It doesn't need to be amputated. And he was like, that was God. God was all through his story. And he was just standing there telling us his story. And then years later, there was trouble with his wife. His wife left him. Just a lot of bad things happened. And he was like, but God's with me. God's got me. And we're standing there listening to his story, and I'm just bawling because there's been a lot of stuff that I've gone through in my life in the past couple of years. And this man was like, it's okay. God's got me. He had his hand torn to shreds, and he's like, but God's got me. So that was the big God moment, and it's changed me ever since I've been back. It's it doesn't matter what happens. God's got me.
Amen. Amen.
Each day when we arrived at Samaritan's Purse, they gave us a journal, and each day there was a prompt that you could pray and journal on. And so I wanted to read you one of the journal prompts and my response to that. It kind of tells the story. The prompt was, what good thing did I experience today, and how did I walk with people in joy and in sorrow? My response was, great question, especially to a task-oriented introvert. So many good things. In a disaster, good is always found. As we worked, we laughed, we cried, we prayed, we were encouraged, we encouraged others. I learned so many things, conquered so many fears, heard so many stories. Charles is just one of those stories. Charles lived just down the road from the house we were building. His wife died 2 years ago, and 2 months before we arrived, his son died. He was in such sorrow. What I learned most was that when Charles showed up, we put down our tools. When he showed up, we gathered around him, we prayed, we cried, and we hugged. I needed to learn to stop, to take time, to not talk, to not fix, just to listen, be patient, without judgment, to reach out, ask, listen, and be present. God is so good, even in a disaster.
It's awesome. Thank you.
Amen. So just kind of recapping or putting a bow on it, whatever term you want to use for our trip. So those that don't know, Samaritan's Purse is a ginormous international organization, does all kinds of stuff. They have Christmas Child, which will be talked about later, but ours is specific about disaster relief. So anytime something happens, they are there. They're usually first ones on, sometimes last ones to leave. So they're in Florida, there are floods, I mean, you name it, they're on site. That takes staff, a lot of staff. So the way that logistically things work is that they'll have dozens or sometimes hundreds of volunteers that will come in and out on a weekly basis, and they have, for our particular site where we were, they had basically 2 staff persons that would oversee the site from foundation all the way to giveaway of rebuilding that home. So anyway, so for our specific team, we were on different teams, some of us, but his name was Tom, he was our foreman. Second night there, we were sitting there and we were talking, just Tom and I, kind of after group night and whatnot. The team doesn't know this because I never shared it with them. So we were talking for probably like an hour just about life and family and ministry and stuff like that. And I came to find out that he's from New York. He left, he calls it a deployment, but basically to serve with Samaritan's Purse, or as other staff members either moved or their families came with him or whatever, he was down there solo. So getting from Kentucky to New York is not a very easy feat to do on a regular basis. So one of the things that he had kind of confided in me was just how much of a struggle it's been for him. He's literally down there, he's seeing his colleagues that have their spouses with them, or they're, they see him every day, or they have kids close by, and he's literally by himself. And his basically job is to help train, to work with volunteers that come through a different batch every week. So as we were talking, he said that he would love to be able to go back and fly home more frequently, but financially it's just not an option. He gets free housing by being there, but it's definitely he's not in it for the money, so to speak. So he said that, he could drive home in his truck, which costs him roughly $700 round trip, or he can fly home for $300. Interestingly enough, the day before I left, my mother-in-law and father-in-law I didn't even ask, they just handed me a stack of cash and just said, use this to bless someone. So like my first 2 days there, I was like, I'm not gonna see the homeowner, I'm not gonna see some guy, like who am I gonna use this money for? And sure enough, as soon as Tom told me that it cost $300 to fly home, I remembered that they gave me exactly $300. So as I left, the day I didn't tell Tom, I just put it in an envelope and gave him a card as I left. And it said, hey, thanks, this is a gift from God, not from me. I was told to use it to bless it, and by anyone's account, like, you are definitely the guy that needs to be blessed. So he sent me a text the next day after he actually opened the card. He just says, thank you for blowing my mind, 17 exclamation points, right? Says, you do not know what a blessing you have been to me. I was ready to quit a couple of weeks ago, and now I have a renewed vigor for being here, and that was even before the gift you gave. You'll never know how you have helped me. I feel like the guy on the side of the road that the Samaritan helped. God bless you. So for me to be able to, again, it's no act of me. It was just kind of the vessel being worked through, but to be able to strengthen those on the ground that are doing this every day of every week. He's down there for a year. It was such a huge, huge, huge blessing. And then the last thing, I know we're already over, but again, we were down there for home construction, for rebuilding. And the fourth day that we were there, Thursday, we actually got to see that in person. So you go into downtown Mayfield, just down a little old street, a lot of homes that were in, some in decent shape, some in not so decent shape. And for months, different groups have been coming in and working on this home that was literally going to be presented to them. So if you can think of like an HGTV show, like the big reveal, it was like that on steroids, right? There was probably 50, maybe 60 of us volunteers all there in orange. The homeowners come out, right? And there's men that are praying for the people that are there. They're praying over the house. Every volunteer goes up and prays, and then they literally just give them a key and says, even though your house was totally destroyed, the love of Christ has provided you a new home that you don't owe a penny for, 100% free of charge. So there's just all these people crying. It was unbelievable. Other than the cross, it was the greatest act of generosity and compassion personally that I've ever seen. And I'll probably never forget that till the day I die. So it was a great opportunity, and again, I'm just thankful to be able to be used as one of his vessels, and for the ladies here that were able to join with us. So thank you.
Hey, guys, put your hands together for what God has done. So thank you guys so much. I mean, that's awesome. And but it just seems like you're recovering from one disaster and another one happens, right? And that's sometimes the way our personal lives work, and that's sometimes the way it works in our country. So Doug, you want to come up? This is Doug White. You can put your hands together for him. So Doug spent some time in Florida a couple weeks ago because his father-in-law owns a place on Sanibel Island, and those of you who have followed the hurricane season know that whole area of Florida was just decimated. So, and Doug, you showed up there, and I want you just to talk about first, kind of when you arrived, what did you see, man? What did it look like?
Yeah, sure. There lots of themes from the group that was just up resonate with what I saw, and I guess I described the trip as the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the ugly is exactly that. When I got there, driving down, it's about a 20-hour trip. I decided because my father-in-law's house was there's no way to get to the island. The causeway was broken into 4 pieces, and the only way to get there is by boat. Well, from the satellite imagery, we could see that his boat was up in the middle of a mangrove tree about 6 feet above the waterline. So I hooked my boat up to my truck, and I drove 20 hours down so that I could ferry him back and forth to the island. And as I got closer, you see the wind damage, you can see trees down, and as you get closer to Fort Myers, you see piles of people's belongings out on the curb. That's an area that has seen many, many hurricanes, but it's never seen the storm surge and the flooding that it did from this storm, from Hurricane Ian. Sanibel Island, the best part of Sanibel Island was only 4 feet underwater. There are sections near the coast that are completely gone. There were other areas that were 10 feet underwater. My father-in-law's house was very fortunate. He was only 5.5 feet underwater. So just think about walking through your house and everything that's eye level or below is now garbage, complete trash. Every appliance, every piece of clothing, every piece of furniture, cabinets, countertops, you name it, sheetrock. So utter devastation is really all I can say. And fortunately for him, it's a second house. It's not his primary residence. But for many people on Sanibel that have been there since it was incorporated in the 70s, that is their only home. Yeah. And as was mentioned, they've lost everything, and they don't have insurance.
Most of them don't, yeah.
Because it's $35,000 a year just in premiums for flood insurance, and most people can't afford that.
And Doug, I know because we talked on the phone a few times when you were down there, and you got to interact and have meals with some of the people that had lost everything, and everybody's pitching in. talk about, because what happens is they hit the news and everybody there's this initial rush of support. Everyone's like, hey, we'll give a little bit of money, and hey, everybody help this area. And then after the next thing happens a week later someplace else, it falls off of the national radar, and everybody's left to pick up the pieces of their own lives. So talk about kind of the long term. What are people looking at?
Well, Hurricane Charlie went through about 15 years ago, I think. And it was about the same strength as this one, but it was 1/5 or 1/7 the size. So this was that on steroids. And again, it took them almost a decade to recover from Charlie. It's going to take probably 15 or 20 years for them to recover from this storm. A lot of people lost just about everything. It's going to take a long time to rebuild. And it's something, it's definitely, as you said, it's not a week-long process. It's not a month-long process. I mean, they still don't have power and water on Sanibel. They just opened the causeway to residents last week after almost a month, which in itself is a minor miracle. The fact that they were able to, that Department of Transportation can actually do stuff in a timely manner when given enough time and resources. But it's going to be a very, very long process. My father-in-law is heading back down at the end of, in about a week. Still maybe have power at that point, but there's only so much you can do without power and water.
So moving forward, like, what can be done? What is there to do? How can people be a part of the healing, be a part of the fix?
Well, I mean, obviously there's financial donations you can make. I did find one organization that is kind of next to the Red Cross, but it's called volunteerflorida.org. It's a nonprofit. It's a Florida Disaster Relief Fund, and I think I'm going to personally donate to it. I'm going to head back down there probably in January, February. One of the, I said it was a good, the bad, and the ugly. The bad was I lost the boat key in South Carolina as I was refueling, so we had to change out the ignition on the boat when I got there. The boat broke down on the way back from the island on day one, which brings in the good. We were having dinner after being completely exhausted from the first day of work, and we were having dinner at one of the few restaurants that was open on the island. And I don't know if you probably saw the pictures of 4 guys standing there. This is the pile of all my father-in-law's belongings on the front lawn there. So the 4 gentlemen down there, it's myself, my father-in-law is the tallest one, and the 2 other guys are guys that we happen to be sitting next to at the bar, John and Pat. Pat is an active Chicago firefighter. John is a retired Chicago firefighter. They both have properties down there. They were just checking on them. And both were relatively unscathed, which is a miracle in itself. And we're sitting there having dinner and just telling them about our day. And I said, well, yeah, my boat broke down, and a friend of a friend had a mechanic who's going to look at it tomorrow. He goes, you know what? I got a boat. I'll take you out to the island tomorrow. So out of nowhere, we meet these 2 guys. Not only did Pat take all 4 of us out to the island, they stayed there the entire day and helped us move all the heavy furniture and do all the heavy lifting, quartz countertops that only 4 guys could carry. My father-in-law and I would not have been able to do that. He works in mysterious ways, doesn't he? Because John has a rental property there in Fort Myer. Well, because of the storm, all of the people that normally go down have started canceling their trips for this winter. So my father-in-law needs a place to stay while he's working on the house, so he's going to rent out John's property for a couple months starting in January.
All right. Like you can see, these problems seem overwhelming, but when everyone pitches in and the Holy Spirit maximizes what can be done, just like the loaves and the fish, right, where God can take a little bit and he can do a lot with it. That's what we're going to pray for right now. We're going to pray for the relief to take place, for God's people to step up, and then we're going to worship a little bit more before we talk about a couple international things. So, yes? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the issues are real. And so let's take a moment and let's just pray for God to raise up workers. It's what he does. And for God's people to do what they do. Father in heaven, you are awesome in this place. Father, and I thank you for exposing us and our eyes to the needs that are out there, locally and to the needs that are out there nationally, Father, that in this country there are people right now that as we're sitting here in our luxuries and we're planning what meal we're going to go and have at a restaurant after this meal, there are people just still trying to put their lives back together. There's people that are trying to figure out how they're going to go on without the person that they love, who they lost. And so, Father, when it seems overwhelming, there is one who is not overwhelmed, and that is you. When it seems impossible, there is one person who has consistently and constantly done the impossible, and that is you. And so, Father, you are the one we cry out to in times of need. And so we're going to ask you, Father, to supply. It's kind of what you do. You are Jehovah Jireh. You're the one who provides. And so we're going to ask for you to provide through your people, but to provide and to resource. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you, Doug, for sharing those words. What we're going to do now, actually, we're going to kind of take a little direction change right now, and we're going to sing a little bit at the end, but we're just going to move right into what Acts 1:8 says, what we're going to be as witnesses locally, right, in Jerusalem, then nationally, Judea and Samaria, and then the remotest parts of the earth. There's a couple things that we are involved with right now that are international. And you may not be aware of those, some that you are. I think Betty touched on one. I'm going to ask Stephanie to come on up. Put your hands together for Stephanie. We're doing a lot of talking. And she's going to give a little more information about Operation Christmas Child and what you can do to get involved and to plug in and the difference that it makes.
Hey, everyone. So honestly, Betty was one of the best people to introduce everything to you because she actually very recently had the chance to experience or have an interaction with someone who has received one of these boxes. I can't say that I have. I do the legwork from here. But Betty has actually been able to interact with someone, and just the joy and the thankfulness that person experienced. And Betty, I mean, she went to Kentucky to work with the same organization, but she didn't think she'd ever come in contact with someone who would receive a shoebox from somewhere else overseas. And this person is now being generous, partly because of what the people did for her when she was a young girl living where she lived. And it may not feel like from here we're making that much of an impact, but we really are. And so Operation Christmas Child is one of those things that Samaritan's Purse does and has been doing for years. I can't remember what anniversary they were celebrating last year, but it was a big one. But it's something that they do that they feel is important to show children how much they are loved, not just by the people who are right there with them in their village or their town, but also places across the world. As Betty said, for many of these children, these are the only gifts that they're getting either for Christmas or for their birthday or for anything. And we here in the United States are so lucky to be able to shower our family and friends with gifts throughout the year that we don't really have a concept of what that's like. But not only are the gifts themselves the important thing, but every child who receives a shoebox from Operation Christmas Child also receives a message of the gospel. Not just at the moment that they're receiving their shoebox, but they've gone through and developed a class that takes children through the gospel. And so they are getting the opportunity for a long-term experience of God. and how he loves them and impacts their lives. And so this year, we started our Operation Christmas Child effort a little early. It was more back at the beginning of the school year. And we just wanted to reintroduce it to you because we are getting closer to the deadline when the shoe boxes will be due. They're due Sunday, November 20th, if you want to bring them back here, and we will take them to a processing center. Or if you have somewhere near your home that you'd like to take it to, you're welcome to do that as well. But we still have boxes available. We have lists of ideas of things that you can purchase for children at different ages, and whether it's a boy or a girl. And then also, if your lives are busy and you just don't necessarily have the time to go out and do that, we would be willing to purchase the items and pack a box for you. I will be out at the Operation Christmas Child table after the service is over, so you can come talk to me, ask me any questions you may have, but we also have a little sign out there with a QR code that you can scan and fill out if you want to go ahead and send money for packing a box, but also just to send money for shipping a box and processing the box. So.
Thank you so much, Steph. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I hope you're starting to get a feel now of how you can be involved and how you can plug in, the difference that you can make. And that's a simple one. You walk out, you grab a box, you sit down with your kids, you go to Five Below, you go to Target, wherever it is, and you buy meaningful gifts that will make a difference for that kid, and the difference you're going to make is unbelievable. And those go all over the world. Like all over the world, every village. It's so awesome what they do. And we have one more international missionary that we're going to talk about and talk to this morning. And Pastor Favor's in here only for like another week or so. So I want you to put your hands together for Pastor Favor. Come on up, my friend. Good morning and welcome. It's good to see you again.
Good morning, Pastor. Good morning, church. So good to see everybody. Then the last time I was here was last August or September. So good to see everybody. And I also want to use the opportunity to say thank you, thank you, thank you. Without you, what you're about hearing this morning wouldn't have been possible. Most of you individually, but corporately, you made it possible. And as I shared with Pastor when we had, was it a breakfast?
It was kind of coffee and breakfast, yeah.
If I knew what I now know, I possibly wouldn't be out there. It was a leap of faith, encouraged by people like you, Justin, and Gateway as a congregation. And I'm glad I took that leap of faith. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and so now, Pastor Favor, just so you know, is doing missionary work overseas. So can you tell us about the kind of work that God called you to do and what you're doing?
Okay, I'm working in the city of Glasgow in Scotland, which is one of the 4 nations that make up the United... Can that go off? I'm having so much difficulty having to look there. Okay, let me step down a bit.
Yeah, you can step. Is that better?
Okay, yes. It's
or
better.
You can look up here, too.
No, that's fine. City of Glasgow in Scotland. Scotland is one of the 4 nations that make up the United Kingdom. Glasgow is also the New York of Scotland. All the financial, economic, whatever, it's in Glasgow, though the capital is in Edinburgh. And Glasgow, up until a year ago, was the second city in the United Kingdom that took in more refugees than any other city. It was only second to London. So when these refugees come in, from wherever they come in, they're shipped to Glasgow. And I use that word consciously shipped because they report for asylum and then on the train or on the bus go to Glasgow. And these are people who are basically just arriving maybe with the shirt on their backs. And that shirt won't be as good as this one. Might just be a T-shirt. They don't speak a word of English. And most of them are coming from close countries like Afghanistan, Iran, Turkey, the Middle East. The good thing about them is that, the good thing about what you see in Glasgow is that when these people show up, they don't look out for a mosque, first of all. They look out for a church. They want to hear about Jesus. And that's so cool that we have this opportunity to work with them for a number of months and years, developing relationship with every one of them. So we came together, about 5 of us came together. Well, not 5, we used to be about 15. Then we had this second lockdown, and that destroyed everything we had built. So we're now about, 4, not exactly 5 that work. And the lady in the middle, Dr. Becky, has been working with refugees since she was 32 or thereabout. She's about 52 this year. And she's been working with refugees and immigrants all of that time.
Wow.
Pastor Monday is a refugee. Is an immigrant. And then Reverend Kay is a minister of the Church of Scotland, which is the equivalent of Church of England, Episcopal. Glasgow, as it is, and Scotland as a whole, it's like living under a dome. I don't know if you remember the CBS drama program, Dome. You can't, it's spiritually backward, spiritually enclosed. Nothing about God works there. It's either you find them totally submerged in Roman Catholicism or they're agnostic. Or atheists. They don't want to hear anything about God. So it's a lot of prayers. And that's one area we need you, a lot of prayers. Now, the refugees we're working with, I talked about building relationship with them because most of them are Muslims. They've been brought up as Muslims. And they are trying to get out of Islam and be free. So we're starting a skills acquisition program that will teach them English and digital skills. Now, they're not going to graduate from those classes in 2 months because most of them don't even know the alphabet. So it's a long-term relationship. But the good thing with that is that when you evangelize Muslims, you have to build long-term relationship with them. They are not easy to convince just like that. You have to win their trust. You have to nurture that trust because one slight misstep, they turn their back and you can't get them back. So with this program, we're going to have a long time with them to nurture that relationship. Our English language classes in particular will be using Christian literature to talk about English verbs, nouns, adjectives, and everything. But we're going to be bombarding them every day with the Word of God so that they can ask questions about this Jesus that the books are talking about. One of the books we'll be using is called Death Defying Fate, written by one South African who's going to be with the Lord. He never believed in God until his father had a heart attack. And the doctors told him, you better get to the hospital if you want to see your father before he passes on. And he made it after driving through the night from one end of South Africa to the other. And he saw the father. It wasn't good. So he went into the parking lot. He remembered a cousin of his had been talking about Jesus to him. And he sat in that car and said, Jesus, if you are truly there, heal my father and I will be your servant for the rest of my life. The following morning, the doctors were astounded. When they came in, they thought they were coming to say goodbye, but the old man lived some 10 or 15 years after that experience.
Wow.
And that man wrote that book, Death Defying Fate. So these are the kind of stories we want to share with these immigrants, these refugees, these asylum seekers, so that they can ask questions about this God, about this Jesus that we are so passionate about. And we're looking at the age 18 to 28, 29 to 45, because we want sustainability. We want them to pass it from one generation to the other generation. And we're looking at people because some of these countries, their crisis will soon be over. And some of these people will want to go back to their home countries. It is easier for them to take the gospel back to their home countries than you and I going over there to be missionaries. It is cheaper. It is also safer.
So, Pastor, sorry.
Yeah.
So when we talked, there were some very specific things that you said your organization needs for us to be able to do this. And what are those things, and how can those?
I'm glad you asked that. Was it? I think you said while you were here, you met somebody who was saying they wanted to meet God. You wanted to meet God in a big way, and then you met somebody who encouraged you even as bad as their situation seemed, and that was your God moment. Justin talked about the guy who was thinking, should I pack it up or not? At some point in the last 2 years, I've asked myself, what am I doing in Scotland? It's so difficult. I've been living, for 2 years now, I've been living out of a suitcase. It's not easy. And that is a personal need that I want met. But more importantly, how am I going to sustain teaching people English over a long term? Volunteers can come in for a couple of months and they are gone. And these people need stability. They don't trust anybody. Once you disrupt that stability, they are gone. So I need teachers. I need at least 4 teachers to put on payroll so that they are committed to being there week after week for these people. Because if I cannot get that, this project will crash before long, no matter what else we put in. Those are the 2 critical areas we need your help. And don't think you cannot help us, because we needed a printer and a scanner. Somebody here in Gateway went on Facebook and talked to a number of friends and said, hey, we have a missionary post in Scotland. They need this. And a few days later, a couple of weeks later, we got a message that a 4-in-1 printer had been delivered to us to do the work there. So you don't have to be in Scotland to be able to help us. Somebody in Gateway has remotely supplied one of our needs, because we need that scanner, that printer, because these people, they don't even have digital skills. So most of the initial materials will have to be copied, reproduced, and given to them to go home and study. And that was a critical need. And it was supplied from here in the US. And you can do that. The person didn't have to ship it. They bought the item over there in the UK, and it was delivered to us.
So, Pastor Favor, I want to challenge, and if you come down, I want to pray for you, and I want to pray for your ministry. And I know you'll be heading back overseas soon. And he already said it, the first thing we can do is pray, right? And so I'm going to ask everybody to stand up where we are, all right? And we're going to pray for Operation Christmas Child and the difference you can make locally there and internationally there. And we're going to pray for Pastor Favor. And then we're going to have him out in the Welcome Center to greet and to talk. And if God is stirring you, you know what? I can support. I can be someone who can come alongside and help to resource him and the work that he's trying to do overseas, the work that God has called him to do overseas, so they can hire those teachers so that they can share the gospel and this ministry can continue on. Then I want you to shake his hand and say, hey, I want to be a part of how we can help you. So can we pray for you, Pastor?
Yes. Before you pray.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I think, okay. Mackenzie gave everybody coming in some information. Most of what I said is in detail there, and how you can go online or come through Gateway to support. Okay?
Thank you. Father in heaven, we thank you for who you are. We thank you for the work that you are doing, that you have done this past year. Father, I thank you for the testimony this morning that you are calling your people to rise up and to make a difference. And some of that difference is happening right here in the towns that we live in. Your people catching the fire, the passion to be able to make a difference, Father. We're supposed to be disciples who make disciples who make disciples. You've called us to do that. So, Father, I thank you for people that say, you know what? I'll be a part of your kingdom expansion project. Father, for kids who are going to be blessed this Christmas, Father, that they hear the message of Jesus when they open this box, Father, I pray that lives are going to be touched, because people today are going to walk out here with a box in their hand, and they're going to get on board and be a part of this project. For Pastor Favor, for the mission work he's doing with refugees, for the door that is open for the gospel because of this missionary initiative, Father. I pray that lives are changed forever because of you, that people will come to hear who your Son is and what he did for them on the cross, and accept the gift of grace and go back in a year, 2 years, 3 years to share with their family and their friends, so that the message of Jesus goes on and on and on, starting where we are here, but across to the ends of the earth. So, Father, resource Pastor Favor and resource the ministry, emotionally, physically, provide for him. Spiritually, Father, give him a double portion of your Spirit, so that, Father, he leaves this place infused and ready to do even more work. And get your people involved. We love you desperately. In the name of your Son, Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Well, it's been a long one this morning, but good stuff to hear stories about. We want to dismiss so that if you've got kiddos, you can relieve the teachers in there. Todd and I are just going to hang here for a little while and pray and play and continue to worship. But if you got kiddos, go relieve those teachers. Make sure you thank them for what they've the work that they've put in today. creation suddenly articulate with 1,000 tongues to lift one cry. Then from north to south and east to west, we'd hear Christ be magnified.
Should